Our relayed guest today is Valerie Kremer, who worked at Twitter in its very nascent early days in the German office. Afterwards, she started her own company in the future of work, remote culture building space. That's when we met. And then she joined Bento, which was acquired by Linktree, where she had a crucial role as a community builder, marketeer, and we want to talk exactly about that, about marketing, community building, content. Uh, Maybe I missed something. Introduce yourself, tell us about your journey in the recent years and the learnings.
Perfect summary, to be honest. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Katja. I've most recently really being a founder, community builder, and marketer. That's mainly it. And I think you really described this very well. It's something that I'm very excited about personally.
You've also started your own content format, which is a Substack newsletter where you share your learnings from your journey as entrepreneur and as a key hire in a hypergrowth early stage startup. How does that go? What do you think about content? What is the role content is playing in building a personal brand and also, starting up in general?
Yeah. For me personally, I just launched the newsletter. Thanks for mentioning it 2 weeks ago. For me personally, it's a way to become a better writer, but also to personally reflect on what I've actually done in the past. I have the feeling that you can only really learn and teach others also if you write things down. And so this is my way of doing so. And if I can share my learnings with other people, with other founders and other marketers in early stage companies, that's obviously wonderful. And in the end, if that's also helping me build a brand and then potentially making people aware of me, that's obviously a nice side effect, but that's not the first kind of thinking that I had when I now started it.
So it's giving first.
It's exactly it's giving first. I think it's also a very, very important part of content marketing is understanding what are actually the pain points and the struggles that your target audience have, and then really giving value, providing value, helping them learn and grow in their personal field and environment, and helping them solve their problems, even if it's not immediately or directly solved with the product you're working for or that you're building yourself. The content and the experience around your product can create a very emotional connection to your product and brand, which then in the end helps you retain your customers a lot better, but then also initially really attract them and helps you acquire the ones that you want to in best case.
How to bridge that? Because obviously, as an early stage founder, you are building a car as you're driving it. And sometimes you don't really know what the next feature will look like, or what is the direction of the next iteration your product or service might go into.
Yeah.
But you still have to tell the story and create the content. So how do you juggle that?
Yeah. I think the beautiful thing is that most of the time, yes, there will be pivots, and usually the solution doesn't stay the same. But ideally, you as a founder and also as the early team are excited about solving the problem in whichever form. So in the end, the problem won't change. So you can keep talking about the problem and you can keep talking about your journey. And most of the time, this already is so exciting and inspiring for other people that they will follow, and that they will be interested to keep up to date on what's happening and what you're building. And the beauty of that is that you're kind of, even though there might not be a product yet that you can actually sell, or that people can maybe even use, there's some form of interest that you create throughout your journey and the stuff that you're doing. And you can already share about the way you think about things and the trends you see. I mean, you're doing this also very well with your interview series here, right? You're kind of interviewing people that have probably similar problems as your target audience. And this is a beautiful way for others to learn about the experiences and the insights that others have. So this is exactly the right thing you're doing here.
That's a good affirmation. Yeah, we love this rabbit hole because we think it's such a struggle to, so you have to be out there. You have to share your vision. So I completely agree
Yeah.
with you. You have to describe the problem that you're trying to solve and why you are the right team to do that, and what are the
Yeah.
challenges and obstacles, but maybe also like rewarding good things that you're finding along the way as you're approaching
Exactly.
towards their solution. And there are also multiple solutions. I think an annoying part is that creating content is so like taped. So there are so many tools to do that. You need to
Yeah.
research what's interesting for your audience. Then you need to find out what are the tools to kind of package it properly for each platform. Which platforms should you be present on? Should you push your content to? And then you have to analyze what's performing. So all this can quickly turn into a full-time job. But you're also founders. You actually have to build and sell your product and attract the best talent and maybe investors along the
Yeah.
way. So what you're learning there, which tools were you using? And, as you were building your ventures or like other people's companies,
Yeah.
what do you think is broken? What is good? What's your snapshot on that?
I think what's most important, maybe to start, is that you shouldn't overwhelm yourself. So, as you said, there are a lot of things that you have to do in the early days. As a founder, you have tons of things you have to solve and look out for. So, I think the most important thing is in the early days. I know everyone usually says don't put all your buns in one basket, but when you start out, it's super important to focus on one channel. Obviously, you need to test, and you need to think about what's working best for your audience. Where do they hang out? What do they talk about? What are the problems and struggles? Right? What we earlier discussed. I think that's the starting point. Nail one channel really well before you kind of expand into other channels. It's you rather do one channel really well than all kinds of channels just mediocre, right? So this is the starting point. But if you obviously nail it, then you need to branch out. And then the struggle obviously is that there are a lot of channels, and the problem is that you shouldn't kind of put the same message into every channel. Usually there's, how I always think about it, there's one job for each channel, and you need to tell the story differently on each platform and each channel. So the first thinking that you have to do for yourself is, what's the role of this channel? What additional perspective does this channel now add to my mix? And if it doesn't add an additional perspective, then do I really need it? Or should I rather think about something else? So this is usually how I'm going about it. Most of the time, my focus, but this is also where my skill set is, and this is also something that you would always obviously need to consider when starting, is where your strengths, right? And then what's best for your business. But personally, I love to start with organic channels because they're sustainable, they're cheap. In best case, you can work with something if you're not VC funded, or if you are VC funded, still you should work efficiently. So this is something that would always work with first. And then for B2B, for instance, that's many times LinkedIn. For B2C, that might be a different channel depending on your target audience. But this is basically how I would go about it and think about it.
Yeah, I totally agree, except for one thing, that it is for free, but you spend so much time kind of curating those channels. And I think also the target audience can be slightly different. So maybe LinkedIn is a bit more like grown up professional, kind of slightly like bigger potential clients, maybe. While Twitter is great for sparring with other founders, VCs, maybe tech talent, designers, and of course, with this startup, you're not addressing just one audience. So yeah,
it's true.
So I think for that,
yeah.
And so what kind of tool set? Like what are the tools, and like what's your favorite software you're using as a content creator and community builder? And where do you think are still blind spots?
Personally, I love to use, the the social channels generally as a platform, right? So Twitter, LinkedIn. Twitter is my favorite channel, honestly. As you said, you can connect with other founders, with investors, with inspiring people. LinkedIn more for kind of connecting with others. But tools that I mainly use, obviously ChatGPT.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is something that I do use. Obviously, it's helped me a lot for kind of coming up with ideas, but also sharpening ideas or structuring my text, etc. That's really helpful. I'm for Twitter especially, and now they also help with LinkedIn. I use Typefully in the very beginning. I don't use it anymore, but this was something that I did like a lot. And otherwise, I don't use that many things. I mean, I guess I use Trello, or used it in many companies, similar to Asana for content planning, right? To kind of, especially if you work in a bigger team, you need to align and the process, etc., and the different steps. And then what's very helpful for me, honestly, also for brainstorming, etc., is Figma. So I personally use Figma for the design. So I taught myself also how to use Figma and how to kind of create my own design templates. Most recently, little tip, I know I'm late to the party. I identified a meme generator that I use for my newsletter, for instance. I really love to use it. I've always been wondering when I was working in marketing earlier, like how do all these people always come up with the memes? And I basically then asked ChatGPT and was like, what are the best meme generators? And so this is what I'm using. I actually forgot the name of it, but image meme generator or something like that. Yeah, it's super cool because it has a library of different images, and then you can basically just match the text with it. And ChatGPT can also suggest examples for, like, you can put your blog into ChatGPT and ask them, please give me a good idea for this meme. And so this is super helpful and super fun.
And it has a potential to take your content viral, which is obviously super exciting.
Yes.
So you worked in marketing, you worked in community building, but you started your career in sales and account management. What do you think about bridging all these areas? They are obviously related to each other, but how does it work in practice? So if you do all these memes and content, organic content and so on, how easy is it nowadays to link it back to the inbound you might receive, or, their effective customers that come out of it ultimately? How easy is it nowadays with the existing framework of tools to connect organic content and ultimately sales?
Yeah. I think the best thing is usually when salespeople understand themselves that they need to build a personal brand to become a better salesperson. So already back at Opinry, I was giving social selling courses within the company around why it is so important to build your personal brand. Because ultimately people enjoy buying from people who they trust in. It's a general trend, obviously. That's why the influencer market is booming, right? But this is the same in business. If a person has some kind of first social proof and trust base, people are more willing to buy from you. This is just the reality. So ideally, the sales team should understand how to do this themselves. But if the marketing team can support, that's obviously amazing, because the marketing team are the ones that then create the baseline for the sales team. So in the sense of content and marketing are the ones that are creating awareness, so that when the salesperson is approaching a client, they don't need to do all the work from the get-go, but actually in some form they can build upon this, right? A warm lead is always better, always, whatever you think about, than obviously a cold lead. That's with everything in life. And so I think there's a big overlap. And there are now a lot of things we could talk about, and a lot of strategies and processes that help with combining these. But I think these are kind of things to consider, or this would be something that I would look for. And I think that's important to think about.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Sometimes, though, salespeople prefer to focus on sales and they don't have time to be a LinkedIn or Twitter influencer. But for
Yeah.
that, partially our tool is already helping a few people, by the way, which is super cool. So
If you're a thought leader, you will be respected as an expert in your field. And I think there's, at least in my sales career, I always was striving for being a consultative seller. So I always wanted to be seen as a partner. And the more you are seen as a partner, as an expert, the easier your sell will be. This is the reason why I think it's a flawed argumentation if you say I don't have time to create content, because it's part of your sales strategy then ideally, right? But yeah, I do know these arguments, and I obviously understand that it's not coming easy to everyone to create content. So yeah.
I totally agree. It has to be eye to eye, so then it's much easier to do
Yes.
business. And maybe one closing thought on the future of marketing. So we touched upon community building, storytelling, building in public, building a personal brand, becoming a thought leader. So are there any non-obvious trends or maybe your own statements that you think all this is evolving into any special direction, or maybe some unexpected turn this might take with, all
Yeah.
the AI
I mean,
in
I don't know if you've seen the announcement yesterday
the video?
by
Sora?
ChatGPT with
Yeah,
Sora. I mean, I'm
yeah.
just mind blown by the things that are possible. I cannot, I don't know I mean, it's just insane what's happening out there in the market right now. So I think predicting the future is really hard. But I think what's something that I very much believe in is that, especially now with the shift towards AI, it becomes even more important to focus on community building and brand building, because ultimately with AI, anyone can build products and at very cheap prices, and so there will be a huge competition and will be an even more crowded market. So how do you cut through the noise? And cutting through the noise is investing in your brand, investing in content, investing in community, and being out there and being different than others, because this is ultimately the only way, I think, how you can actually get noticed in this sea of different products and brands that
Right.
are trying to get your attention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great closing. +1 from me on that one. Thanks, Valerie, for being with us, and we will be
Thank you,
following your
Katja.
journey.